Hello, hi everyone. Welcome to our next talk. Hello, hello. Those of you who have been watching us the whole week, I hope you're enjoying everything. I hope you're getting all the emails. The emails have your freebies. Don't forget to go and look. There's tons of really great freebies. And also it gives you some more information about the next talks that are coming. Yeah, and if you haven't watched before, hello, I'm Claire Ems, and I'm the co-founder of the Conscious Parenting Association South Africa, along with Jess next to me, who is the other co-founder. And today it's Jess who's our speaker. So we're talking all about pets and kids. So yeah. So Jess, should we start with the prize from last time?
Yes, the prize is for something that you're giving away, right?
Yes. So this is a free Surviving Sibling Struggles masterclass. So it's an hour and a half masterclass for people who want to work on their siblings bond and conflict resolution and all of that. And one person entered and she had the best reason. So we were like, this is it. She's the one. And her name is Sarah Muller. So well done, Sarah. It's going up on the screen. There we go. Yay. So Sarah, if you can just contact us at admin@cpasa.org.za to redeem your prize within 5 days. Yeah.
Cool.
And then, Jess, before we get started, do you want to share a little bit about your prize that people can win during the course of your talk?
Do I?
Do you?
Yeah, I've got a prize as well. And so, yeah, you'll find out what it is when we get more into it.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. Maybe if you don't know what it is, you might not know what to motivate. No, well, I'll mention it just now. It's okay. You can find out later.
Okay, cool. I think that was all the admin-y sort of stuff. So hello to everyone watching. First, I wanted to remind you, please ask questions as we go. Like, we love having the chats. Don't think that you have to wait till the end or anything. Ask questions as we're talking and we'll pop it up on the screen and chat to you. We've got a few questions from social media already that we'll be covering. I think that was everything. And then we can get into today's talk. So today is all about pets and kids. And I want to start off by Jess just telling us a bit about yourself, Jess, and what you do and, yeah, why you do it. So take it away.
Well, I'm Jess. I am a companion animal behaviorist. And what that means is I go to people's homes. Well, right now I do it all online. But basically, if you have an animal, I don't want to say a behavior problem, I'm trying to stay away from that. If you have an animal that is exhibiting a behavior that you are struggling with, then I come in and I help you to solve that struggle and help you to understand your pets a little bit better. And now, since I have qualified as a parent educator, I'm now trying to combine the two to really get the most out of families that have pets and kids, because this is, I mean, it's just such an important thing for me. I've grown, when my son was born, I had a reactive dog. So, it was hard. So I know how hard it is. And even though I was learning about all this behavior stuff and I had a pretty good knowledge on it, when you're in that kind of state of stress and you're, frustrated with your animals and tired because of having children, you're not thinking straight. And so it's tricky. And so I want people to know that there is help and that you don't have to struggle and that there are some really simple ways to just get through the day. We get pets because we want to love them and we think it's going to enrich our lives, and it does. But stress is really strong, and when the picture doesn't look exactly like that, movie fairy tale that you thought it was going to be, it can be quite disappointing, and you might, start having a very broken down relationship between your children and your pets, which is quite disappointing for everyone. So I just want to help, and that's where my focus is at the moment.
And I love, I mean, I don't know anybody else who does both, like who has so much knowledge on pets and kids. And I found when we did the run through yesterday, like I've done child behavior and it's like my passion and it's all I think about. And then the stuff you were saying, it was totally new to me. I was like, this is amazing. And so, yeah, so I hope everyone
so many parallels.
enjoys it as well. So many parallels though, yeah, which was great. Yeah, so we'll see those as we go. Okay, so thanks, Jess. So we'll get right into the questions, just to get people seeing what's happening. And then if you have questions, like I said, just ask. We've got a few on social media already, but we want to give you as much info as we can. So the first one is, and this is a common one, often we hear of people saying, my dog is so friendly, my kids can jump on him, my kids can pull on his ears, my kids can stick their fingers in his mouth. And he's such a good dog, he does nothing. And I wanted to ask your opinion on that, because something about it doesn't feel right to me. And yeah, I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, it's interesting that you say it doesn't feel right to you, because in our previous chat, we were talking about those protective behaviors and those early warning signs and what that does. We have a sixth sense about these things. And there's a reason why it doesn't feel right. And it's because we want to teach our children a lot about body awareness, and we want to teach them about consent and about respect. And we have all these great ideas about what we want to teach them long term. But we also want our dogs to tolerate them poking them in the eyeballs and pulling their tails. And that's not teaching them to respect the dog's private space and personal boundaries. And so if we start to look at it from the dog's perspective, am I comfortable? Should I be tolerating this? Why should I tolerate this? What is the child learning? And really importantly, your dog might be tolerant, and then this is what your child practices. Okay, I can lie on the dog, I can poke the dog, I can pull the tail. Yay, very sweet. I can kiss their face. But then your child goes to a play date at somebody else's house, and their dog is not so tolerant. And the problem with children and dogs is that children's head height is exactly the same as dog head height. And so a bite from a dog to a child is going to go straight to the face. It's not going to be like with adults, humans. With adults, it's hands or legs or something. So you'll still have an injury, but it's not going to be right on the face, which is really, really. It's not only physically scarring to the child, but it can be emotionally scarring too. So we really want to teach our children boundaries that can transfer to every environment. So respect your dog's space, respect your cat's space, so that when they go and they see an unfamiliar dog, they don't rush up to it to give it a hug. And in that way, we can avoid any kind of risk.
Yeah, and I love how you say, like, it also teaches kids that message of autonomy for their own body. Like if the dog doesn't like this, oh wow, so when I don't like it, I'm allowed to say, please don't do that. I really like that parallel because it teaches them so much as well. And then leading on from there, how can you actually prevent dog bites then? Okay, so obviously this is one way. Are there other ways you can prevent dog bites? Because that is such a big fear for people who have maybe aggressive dogs or playful dogs or whatever it is.
I'm so glad you said that people have aggressive dogs. And the reality is that there is no such thing as an aggressive dog.
Okay.
And that is because aggression is a strategy. And aggression is something that a dog uses to communicate that I actually don't want to fight. And so we look at aggression in terms of a progression. So they give you signals. Dogs will give you communication signals. And when you aren't fluent in dog speak, it's very easy to miss these signals. So I've actually got a freebie for everyone later that goes through a lot of what we call calming signals. And it's the little micro expressions that our dogs show us before they growl. We all notice a growl. We're all good at noticing when a dog growls. It's easy because it's in your face and they show their teeth. And so we either get a fright and move away, or we say, no, bad dog, don't growl at us. But what's really going on under the surface is the dog has given us a bunch of signals first that we didn't pick up on. And we'll go through a couple of those signals just now. But what happens is that we ignore those signals and we keep coming on. Oh, hi. Is that Gracie or Hazel?
Yeah, it's Hazel. I've got a visitor.
Hi, Hazel.
Sorry, Bob. Can you carry on and I'll be back in 2 minutes? I'm going to just take
No problem.
Dad.
Sure, no problem. Okay, so basically what happens is that our dogs have, they give these micro expressions. In fact, I'm going to bring up my freebie for you guys so you can all see it. And here is what we start with, which is either a yawn or a blink or licking our lips. Then we can go up to looking away, disengaging, removing direct eye contact, because any eye contact in the wild animal kingdom is considered conflict, it's competition. So if I actively break my eye contact from you, I'm saying I'm not a threat, please leave me alone. And then you might see the white of the eye, the sclera, which we call whale eye. And that's the dog saying, I'm kind of still checking you out, but I'm making myself small. Please don't look at me. And so then we'll, turn away, turn our back. We might walk away. We might lift a paw, get small, tuck. People know a tail tuck. And then we have, crouching or showing our belly. And often people will think that showing a belly means scratch my tummy. Very rarely that actually means it. And so we'll then get stiff. And those things are very easy to miss because they happen very quickly, but we miss it. But then when we see a growl, it's very difficult to miss a dog growling. And then we'll move our child away from that growl. And then the dog goes, okay, I've learned a strategy that works. I'll just growl next time. I'm not going to bother with, yawning or licking my lips or, breaking eye contact because it didn't work. No one listened to me. And so we're just going to growl every time we see the child. If we miss the growl because we're not supervising, then we might have to escalate to a snap or a bite. And so all of these things are just a progression of communication. The dog does not want to bite. That's never really their intention. It's with dogs and children, it's 90% of the time it's defensive. And the child is either coming too close to their space or they want to, they're touching them in some way that's sore, anything like that. Pain is a big issue, ear infections, allergies. We've got to consider all these things when it comes to our dogs and see it from their perspective. And are they comfortable? And if they are, great. If they're not, that means they'll be showing us one of these signals and we should listen. Claire is back, it looks like. So I'm going to bring her on. Here we go.
Thanks.
And I'll take away our screen.
Okay, so we actually had a question in the live chat. It says, yes, I'm trying to teach my 2-year-old not to climb on the dog and having a tough time. Even though I got him not pulling tails and ears successfully, she's a very patient dog, but I worry about other dogs. Oh, you've got it there.
Exactly.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Tech
so,
skills.
so it's exactly the same as any other behavior we want to teach our dog or our child. Instead of telling them what not to do, I like to tell them what they should do. So give them appropriate areas on the dog that they can touch. And I like to stick to the sides of a dog, their flank there, because it's not a very sensitive area. And so there's and if there's an injury there, you'll probably see it if there's a cut or something. So you don't want to be touching them on the soft part of the belly or under the ears. Even though dogs can like ear scratches, I would check as the adult first if they enjoy the scratch, and then I would maybe, let my child do it. But for the safe side, I would stick to either on their back down to the base of their tail or on their side to the base of their tail. And you say, this is where we can stroke. And then you can look at the dog and say, look, he's happy. We also can do a consent test with the dog, which is really awesome. So you actually invite your dog. I've done a whole webinar on this stuff, which is really amazing. It's a full comprehensive, everything you need to know about how to keep your dog and your child safe from each other and to live in harmony. And we go through this in detail about how to, get consent from your dog. And you will invite them into your space the same way we do with children. We never say, go give your granny a hug, because they might not want to. We can ask, would you like a hug right now? And if they say no, they say no. And the way we do this with pets is you open your hands and you invite them into your space. If they move in, then you can touch them. And if you touch them, you stop. And if they come back into your space, then you can carry on touching. It's their way of saying, yes, I like this. Anytime they stop what they're doing or they move away, that's a no. And then you have to respect that. And you can teach your child that to respect the yes and no as a way to transfer it to respecting the yes and the no of, human consent in terms of touch and any kind of consent of yes or no. And so it's always, what should we do with the dog, not what we shouldn't do. We don't want to say, don't touch their head, don't touch their eyes, don't pull their tail, don't pull their ears, because children don't hear the word don't. They'll hear pull the tail, ride on the dog. And children are drawn to fluffy animals. They're drawn to it. So they want to go up and approach. It's a natural reaction to want to be around animals. So it's our job to create those boundaries. I have a 3-tiered approach. It's the 3 pillars of, successful management with children and dogs. And the first part is managing their space. So don't be afraid to use separation or to, when you can't supervise, put your dog and your child in a separate space. No child should ever be left alone with a dog if you're not watching, because 80% of all dog bites to kids happen while parents are present. They're not at the neighbor's house. They're not some random dog that's come in from the street. It's family pets that the children have grown up with that bite. And it's through, missing their body language and missing their communication. And so it's our dogs in our homes that are biting our kids. And so we need to manage their space. Then the second tier is supervision. We need to supervise it. And in the webinar, we go through a lot of details on what types of supervision are and which ones aren't. And then there's teaching. We have to teach them how to behave around the pets. It's not always about separation. There's no one got pets and dogs just so that they could always be separate all the time. We want to encourage engagement with both, but it has to be safe because there are real risks. Dogs have teeth, and not just big dogs, tiny dogs too. Small dogs have sharp teeth and they can do a lot of damage. And children can be very scared of them. I see a lot of people saying, don't be scared of the dog. It's just a dog. It's friendly. You got to take your child's fear seriously. And if they're afraid of the dog, then they're afraid of the dog, and that's okay. And then we can work through that fear and teach them safe practices to, desensitize the child to the dog and the dog to the child. And so that they can build a relationship the same way that you would build a relationship with any person.
I know, while you were talking, I thought of something that actually happened to me as a child. That thing where people will say, don't be scared. They smell your fear. They smell your fear. And the more people say it, the more you're like, oh my gosh, they're smelling my fear. Like, how does a child just stop being scared? I wanted to ask
we're trying to be helpful when we say that. We're saying you don't have to be scared, but that's our conscious brain thinking. That's our logical brain going, this is okay, you're safe. But when your alarm signals are going on, when your amygdala is going, no, be afraid, you're not listening to logic. And it's important not to listen to logic because that part of your brain is automatic and it's giving you the right information for that moment. Because a little child is right to be afraid of something with teeth. That's a good response. That's a healthy response for a child to have. It's our job to teach them to feel safe, not to just pretend that they feel safe or not to just tolerate the presence of a dog. It's to teach them that they actually can be safe in this scenario.
And I think it led to what I was thinking yesterday when we chatted, and we spoke about a lot of those beliefs or like misconceptions that people just believe. Like the one that you mentioned yesterday where people say your dog shouldn't sleep in your bed, and I know that they shouldn't, could you talk a little bit about that? Because I found that really interesting and it paralleled so much with conscious parenting as well.
So often people will contact me about a behavior problem and they'll say, I was very reluctant to contact you because I don't want to punish my dog. I don't want to have to shout at my dog. I don't want to be the boss of my dog. And I don't want my dog to stop sleeping in my bed. And I know they have to. And I know I've been doing it wrong for 3 years, but I love my dog in my bed. But this problem has got so bad that now I have to address it. And so I'm willing to kick them out of my bed to fix the problem. And I go, why do you not have to have them in your bed? Why? If it's a safety issue, then yeah. So if you've got a giant rottie and a newborn baby, not safe. It's the same as any sleep practice with children. Co-sleeping can be done very safely. It can also be done very unsafely. So if you're on a high level and you have an infant and they can fall onto a tiled floor, that is not safe sleep practice. But there are hundreds of guidelines that can teach you how to have a safe sleep practice. So if there's no infant in your bed and your dog is sleeping in your bed, they're comfy, you're comfy, helps their bond. It's all great. If they're urinating in your bed and you don't want them to do that, different story. Then we might have to do some boundaries because that's not healthy and it's obviously not very pleasant for you. But we have these conceptions, these preconceptions of what we need to do and how we need to behave with our animals. And it's just not true. They're based on false, old information. Some of it perpetuated by, TV shows where they have, they use not such great methods to train dogs because it's quick and it's sharp. They use punishment because it works in the moment. We all know punishment works in the moment. But when you start to look at behavioral science and you look at psychology, we realize we unpack how, punishment might work now, but there's always fallout. There's always fallout. And we know so much now. We know that there are different tools. We know how to help. We can change animals' behavior without using any fear, any pain, any force, the same as children. So we need to kind of break down those old beliefs that we had. And a lot of my job is doing that for people because they believe these things that they have to be the boss, that they have to, they have to dominate their dog. And it's just, the simple truth is it's just not true. It's all about building a relationship. And so if you've built your relationship with your child, or your dog, then that communication will be easier, and you can have a mutually respectful relationship, which will be beneficial to both.
Yeah. And again, it's that parallel. It's like we don't actually have to be the boss of our kids. We don't have to be the boss of our animals. And I know when I took my dog to training, that was in the beginning, before I knew any of the behavioral side of it. It was like I felt so forced to do it because it was the right way. And I had this big staffy who wouldn't listen to me, and he was pulling on his lead, and I was scared, and all the other people were scared because they could see that I wasn't.
And he smelt your fear.
And I felt like there could be a better way. And then when I found the behavioral side, I didn't have to be the boss of him. It was actually such a relief. And I wanted to ask you, because often people will say your child needs to be the boss of the dog. He needs to learn, and the dog needs to know the child is the boss. I wanted to ask you your thoughts on that, because that's also something that you often hear. And then you think, oh, my kid's not being the boss. Am I doing it wrong? What must I do? Yeah. So what can you tell us about that?
I like to think of that. I like to equate it to the bosses that I've had in my life, and at any job I've had. And the bosses that I've had who've been respectful of my time, who've taken time to encourage me, who've shown me the ropes at the company, who have taught me, who have been respectful. Those are the bosses that I remember, who I have a great deal of respect for, who I will always value, and who I was willing to do. I'd stay up all night working for them because I knew that they would do the same. It was a mutual relationship. So they were technically my boss, but they treated me as if we were on the same plane. It was mutual respect. The bosses that I've had who've been, domineering and they demand respect, I have no feelings of goodwill towards them, and I'm not encouraged to work with them or to work for them. And so I think it's exactly the same thing, and we can talk about it in terms of parenting. You can be the boss of your children, and we do that because we're adults, and so we feel like we've got the answers. They're little, they don't have the answers. I know what's best, you don't know. And sometimes we do know, and sometimes we know that the dog can't run in the road, so we have to put them on a leash, but we can do it respectfully. We can be their leader without being their boss, and we can do that kindly, and we can do that without any kind of fear, pain, or any force. And so it's sort of a moot point, because we don't need to be the boss. We think we do because that gives us a sense of control, but you can have the same sense of control by using positive reinforcement training and behavioral science. So you can have the same. All you want to do by being the boss is have control, and you can get that control by using kinder methods.
So we've got a question here that's come up. Sorry,
yes.
and I think this is such a good one because so many people have asked me this, not that I knew, but I'm expecting my first baby soon, and I have a young cat. Cats are very different from dogs. Is there anything I should watch out for having a cat around my newborn? Such a good question.
Excellent question. So cats are very different to dogs. One thing that's very different about cats is that they are primarily flight animals, and so they will remove themselves from a situation. More so than a dog will. Dogs kind of really value the social interaction of a family, so they'll stick around even when it's not good for them. They'll stick around even if if it's too much frenzy and they're making bad choices. They'll choose the social aspect over the sort of safety aspect. Cats, because they are also prey in the wild, their go-to strategy is to run away. So when you've got a cat in an environment and they're scared, they will either run away and bolt somewhere, or they will freeze and not move. So when you're bringing a baby into the house, that's not going to be a problem because your baby can't run after them. They can't, they're just going to be lying there. The trouble with a cat is that they test all the baby boxes, all the cots, all the push chairs. We have a cat who, when you can't find her, she's in something. She's in a pram, or she's in a cot, or she's on the new bed. She tests all the baby products for us. And so there is a safety risk in terms of the cat, smothering a small child. But it's also very rare. We kind of make these things up to be these huge, it's like a big thing to talk about because, it's such a scary thing to think about. It's not very common that it happens, But it is always this, you always want to take precautions. You'll always wear your seatbelt just in case. So you wouldn't leave your child alone with your cat. So you wouldn't allow them to sleep in the same cot, the same way that you wouldn't put an infant with a big puffy duvet, because that's a suffocation risk, the same way the cat is. So you would just not allow the cat in the room. You close the door in the beginning. As they get older, you can allow access. Infants and pets should never be allowed alone together, ever. Blanket statement, ever. Because the risks are too high. It doesn't matter if you trust your dog or your cat. Accidents happen, number one, and that this kind of accident is something you can't come back from. And so rather treat them with a healthy amount of fear and respect, and separate and keep your infant up, and don't put them down and leave the room and let the cat lie on the infant, because the chances of anything going wrong are very rare, but cats do have very sharp claws, and so they can jump up and scratch. Baby cries, they get a fright, they'll scream and run away, and they'll scratch the baby in the process. So separation in infant stage is like, just, you have to. Your dog does not need to meet your baby. And if you are introducing your dog or your cat to your baby, you don't need to hold out their head. You can hold out a foot, or even better, put one of the blankets that you've wrapped your baby in and give that to the dog or the cat to smell. They don't need to see the baby. They're not meeting them. It's completely irrelevant to them. They will build a relationship with your child when your child is older, when they're a toddler. When they're a baby, they don't need a relationship. They'll develop that relationship through hearing them, smelling them, and being around them. We want to facilitate that bond. We don't want to force that bond, because by forcing it, we're just putting them into really dangerous situations. So separation.
Which is also a good parallel between kids. When you bring a new kid in, you don't have to force the bond. Like
no, you don't.
It's actually it's universal rules almost. Like, let people do what they need to do when they're ready. I actually wanted to ask as well then, so now the baby is a toddler. What are the ideas there? Like, carrying the cat around, those sort of things, because we haven't spoken much about cats. What are the guidelines there for little kids and cats?
Same sort of consent test. So if you you'll sit and allow the cat to come to you. Cat lies in your lap, stroking. Again, cats don't have the same sort of facial expressions. They haven't evolved to that point yet. So they don't tell us as much. They're much more stoic. They'll just tolerate it for a little while, but then they react quickly because they got short fuses. So it looks like they're fine. It looks like they're fine. They turn around and they scratch. It's like three strokes and you're done. So gentle patting, encourage gentle hands. And if you're picking up a cat, then children don't pick up things very well anyway. So, if they're holding it like this and you can see a cat is struggling, cats don't want to be picked up like that. Most cats don't like being picked up. 90% of cats don't like being held. It takes away their primary strategy of getting out of a situation, which is run away. And if you're picking them up, the only other strategy, unless they've become really tolerant of it, or unless they really do like it and your cat likes it, then don't do it. It's very simple. It's about respecting your animal's boundaries as well. And when we can teach respect to animals, we teach children so much. It's why I love being on the committee for the SPCA, because we, teach children from a very young age how to take care of animals properly, what they need, not just in terms of food, water, shelter, but their emotional needs. And when they can learn to respect animals, it's the first step in teaching them how to have empathy for other humans. Disrespect for animals can go very, very south very quickly. And then we've got some proper psychological issues that we're working on. So we can prevent that from happening with education and teaching children to respect animals. Oh, we're making a better world.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you also then, okay, so that's the consent with the cat. What if you have, sorry, I was thinking of this and I wanted to ask it and I didn't earlier. If you have babies or kids coming into a house, maybe they're not even your own kids, and your dog physically hates kids. And I mean, I know there's the boundary, we can separate them, but what could you do if you want them to get to like each other? Like, is that a possibility?
It depends. It depends on a lot of things. Technically, yes, with enough behavioral modification, And I hate, we say we do behavior mod, but actually what we do is we work on the emotions, the underlying emotions, because, and we parallel this to children as well, because we look at behavior in terms of an iceberg. The tip of the iceberg is the behavior that you see. It's the tantrums, it's the shouting, it's the biting, it's the crying. With dogs or cats, it's the hissing, it's the barking, it's the reacting. But the underlying emotion is where I work as the behaviorist, because I don't want to stop the dog from reacting to the child. I don't want your dog to be in your home and then another child comes in and the dog barks the child. I'm trying to communicate. And now we suppress that by punishing the bark, but the dog still doesn't feel okay. We haven't addressed the emotional association with that strange child. So we need to slowly do desensitization and counter conditioning, which is just a fancy way of saying we need to teach them to have a new emotional response to the child. We need them to learn that this child is not scary. And you can't do that through logic. This is changing, neural pathways. This is changing physiology. And so it's why this kind of stuff isn't on TV a lot, because it's very boring and it's very slow. And some dogs can take weeks, some dogs can take months, and some take years. And it's also very much to do with your capacity. So, separation is easy. You separate and then we're like, okay, well, I don't actually have to deal because this is working for me. And so now we've got a family living in separation, and that's not what we want, which is why I developed that webinar, because I want people to learn how to live in harmony with their dogs and their pets. And there's some really cool things to teach your children and to teach your dog. You want to teach your dog impulse control around children, and you want to teach your children that when you run and flail and squeal, then you become a giant squeaky toy to your dog. So you teach your child to be a tree. And the moment they learn that I can be a tree, the dog will stop jumping and barking and chasing. And so we teach both. We have to teach the child a new response and the dog a new response to live together. And if you've already got an aggression problem, if you've got a dog that is not comfortable, and we say aggression because it's risky. Obviously there are inherent risks with bites. But if you have a dog that's afraid, that's just as concerning, because that's affecting the dog's welfare. We want the dog to be happy. So if you've got a dog or a cat who hides every time you've got visitors, then call me. Let's fix it. Let's get them to be in a place where they actually like having visitors over. And this is doable. It's totally doable. You can change responses because the brain, there's neuroplasticity. We can change it. If it didn't work, I wouldn't have a job. So it's really awesome that it works. And I think that's a really nice thing, is that people are learning that, this is out there, that they can find help, that they can change this behavior. Yeah. The downside, I just want to mention, is that not all behavior can be changed. If you have a dog that has a severe bite history, that's killed other animals before or severely injured another person, then we need to look at having a really serious conversation. But that's done, with the help of a person who is certified and knows what they're doing and has experience with this stuff, because these are serious. They've got serious implications, and we need to have a really good understanding. We can't love every animal better. And so, if you go and you want to adopt a dog into your home or a cat, and you go into a shelter, which by all means do adopt, please adopt dogs. There's too many dogs, too many cats, not enough homes. So I'm a huge advocate for adoption. But if you go there and there's a dog that has a bite history and it's bitten 3 people and you have small children, don't adopt that dog, because you're not going to save that one. Don't do that to yourself, and don't put the dog in that situation. Just, do what's best for your family and understand the limitations, because there are limitations to everyone's behavior. And yes, I would just recommend kind of also keeping a, common sense about these things sometimes. I see there's a question here that I haven't read from Gail. Let me bring this up.
Oh, yes.
My brother encouraged his son and my son, who are both toddlers, to feed his dog. This would take the form of filling the bowl at breakfast, supper time, or giving him a snack of biltong. Doggy would eat from their hands. This is something that parents should do supervised. Yes. So hand feeding dogs is good. I would, however, never have the dog's main feeding station anywhere that has access to children unsupervised. So if you feed your dog in the kitchen and their bowl lives there, don't allow your child and your dog to be there unless you're using active supervision. There are 5 levels of supervision, and unless you're actively supervising and you're doing this active training where I also recommend 1 parent per dog and 1 parent or adult per child. So if you've got a dog and a child, we need 1 adult for the dog and 1 adult for the child. And then you can give the food to the child and even hold their hand and offer it out to the dog, and then let dog eat the food and let them come into the space. But 100% supervision always. This is not something you want to let the dog do the child do. And also encourage your child to know, we're going to do this, and we're doing this when mom is around. The same as you would with swimming. You teach your children how to swim, and you tell them you're not allowed in the pool unless mom is watching, unless dad is watching, unless someone is here. And when there's no swimming, then you would put the net on the pool, or you put the gate around the pool. So you close away that risk, and then when the pool's open, then you supervise and you teach them how to swim. So you teach the dog how to take food gently.
Yeah, it's funny. Sorry, my dogs are busy barking as we speak. Like it's one of those things. But
they're reminding us that people have kids and dogs.
Yeah. It reminds me of something as well that I was going to talk about just now. I would say that because I'm thinking as you talk. When it came to like my own dog, and because I want to ask you something about it, but I want to give my experience and then see what you think. We got a rescue. And we were like, oh, my dog needs a friend, so we got a rescue. And like we always joke, and I'm really saying this as a joke, but we always say she's broken because she wasn't like a normal dog. She jumped on us, she bit us, she didn't know how to dog. Like if we patted her, she hated it. She used to hide a lot. She was really scared. And we can only think she was not really well socialized. She wasn't used to people. And I took her to a trainer. And the training that I took her to was it was so harsh. It almost made it worse. And then I found a behaviorist, and she literally became a different dog. So I wanted to ask you the difference between training and behaviorism, and whether people should discount training and only do behavior, and, the difference between the two.
They work together. So, trainers generally, when you think of training, often you think about obedience training. So, dog sits, dog walks to heel, and we look at the behaviors because this is how dogs were traditionally always trained. I don't do obedience training. One, because I hate the word obedience. I feel like it has no place in our lives. My dog does not need to be obedient to me, neither do my children. It's a whole nother a can of worms, which I'm sure we'll open at some point. But for now, I do relationship training. So I teach the dog to respond to me, and we work together. And the better our relationship, the more responsive that dog will be. And that's where we get into the emotional side. So generally speaking, this is a huge generalization. Training really looks at, whether we're going to reinforce a behavior or not. So walking to heel, I'll reinforce that dog for walking to heel, or sit, and I'll give them something nice. I'll offer them a positive reinforcement for sitting, and then they'll sit more often. Or if you want to stop your dog from rushing through a door, then you train them not to rush. You train them impulse control. Behaviorists work on slightly different behavior issues like separation anxiety. That's not something that you can train away. This is something that's emotional, and so we need to actually look at the brain and the physiology and what the dog is really going through, that affect state of the dog. And so this is not something you can take your dog to training for to get over. Aggression there are amazing trainers that work with aggression, and they've got really great behavioral knowledge. The trouble with both is that nowhere in the world is this industry regulated, so anyone can actually call themselves a trainer or a behaviorist without doing any studies, which is fine. Experience counts for a lot, but we need to make sure that the experience that person has is the right experience. So you need to ask your trainer what methods they use. Are they using force? Are they using fear? Are they using avoidance? Are they using compulsion? If they are, you don't need to go to that person because they're not going to help you build your relationship with your dog. If they're using reward-based training, and even reward-based training is sort of a misnomer because we like to use what the dog enjoys in their normal life. So if my dog loves to chase a ball, I'll use that as a reward for impulse control. You show me a bit of impulse control, you get to chase the ball. Food, let's use food. People don't want to use food. They think it's bribing their dog. But we can use food because it's something they need. It's a biological imperative. let's use it to get the dog to do what we need to do. And so they kind of work hand in hand. Behaviorists often will charge more because in order to become a behaviorist, to call yourself a behaviorist, you do need to do further studies. The courses are a little bit more complex, but I would suggest that if you were choosing either a trainer or a behaviorist, you just look at an accredited organization. So someone who is through the Animal Behavior Consultants of South Africa, or who studied through COPE International, then you know that you can trust their information, because you're working with some, you're working with a sentient being. You want to do what's best for them. You want to make decisions that are helpful for them and helpful for you, and that you're not using anything that goes against your belief system or that is in any way an ethical consideration, because it's illegal to hurt dogs anyway. The fact that we're allowed to do it in training is just beyond me. It actually is against the Constitution. It's against the Animal Protection Act. So you're not allowed to use shock collars. It's illegal in South Africa, but it's legal to sell them, but not legal to use them, it breaks my brain. But anyway, we think that that's our only option. So whether you're getting a trainer or a behaviorist doesn't really matter. Just find someone who is not going to hurt your dog, because then that'll help you. I've got a question from my friend Joe. Hi, Joe. I know that Joe has got a very cute little puppy. I've seen pictures. Okay, how do we deal with puppy nibbling kids? Excellent question. Puppies nibble. Good luck. You've got a long time with nibbling. No, puppies do nibble. So there again, management is one. You want to give them something to chew. Puppies go through a lot of teething phases, so their gums get sore. Their teeth will move in their gums. So even if you don't see teeth coming out, they're still teething. They're basically going to be teething until they're about 6 months old, or longer, depending on your dog. And so we want to provide them with a bunch of different chew toys. So you might have gone to the shop and bought a bunch of chew toys that the shop recommended for your puppy, but your dog actually wants to chew on something soft, or chew on a banana peel, because that's the texture that they like at this moment. Or they want to do rubber and you've only got them rope. So look at what your puppy is chewing around the house. They love shoes. Dogs love to chew on shoes. So get them something that mimics that. So a Kong is a really good option because it's rubber and you can stuff food in it and you can use it as an enrichment toy. And then when it comes to nibbling the kids, again, kids are very erratic and they are noisy and they are squealy and they are big squeaky toys. And so the more squealy they are, the more the dog will chew on the children. So I have an approach where we actually teach the child, one, how to be around the dog, but also recognizing that children are going to be children. So we need to teach the dog how to tolerate children's antics. Okay. And so you teach the dog to be still. There's some really amazing videos on YouTube by Emily Lalem. Her channel is called Kiko Pup, and she's brilliant. I'll post some links in the comments when I'm finished, because she's got 2 amazing videos on how to do handling and how to teach your dog not to nip on your hands. And essentially you take one hand here with the treat and so they're focusing on the treat here, and you stroke gently and then you give them a treat, and you stroke gently and you give them a treat, and then you stroke a little bit harder and a little bit harder, and you get them used to more pressure and more excitement. And then they start to tolerate, okay, when I'm getting touched, I don't need to go for biting. Depending on your type of dog, some dogs are more nippy than others. Labradors are very mouthy. Collies are very nippy. Generally, all dogs are mouthy when they're puppies, but as they grow up, they start to become, more so. They fall into that pattern more. I have a Weimaraner cross Labrador, and he is still incredible. He's a year now, and he's incredibly mouthy. And so he just walks around. I have chew toys all over my house. I have toys, and when we walk, I give him that thing, because he either wants my hand or he wants a thing. He needs to have something in his mouth all the time. And so instead of punishing him for having the thing in his mouth, we give him something in his mouth. That's who he is. He's a dog that likes to carry stuff in his mouth. And so, you teach them an alternative behavior. When you get touched, don't nibble. When you get touched, be still. Or when you get touched, have a chew toy.
I actually wanted to ask you, and this might help people at home if they have little puppies. He's now 11, so this is a long time ago, but I also went to behaviorist, and he was biting us and he was biting guests, and he was little. He was about 6 or 7 weeks old. I think he was taken away too soon, but that's a whole other story. And the lady we went to said that we sort of need to mimic his playmates, and we need to squeal. And it really worked. And my family hated it because they would hear me going, ow, every 5 minutes, and they still mock me about it. So if they're watching, thanks. But I wanted to ask you, is this an accurate way to do it? Like, was it a good way to do it? It worked, but was it a good way to do it?
So what they suggest, so puppies bite a lot when they're puppies. That's one of their main jobs. When they're born, they suckle, and the first part of impulse control they learn is when they bite too hard, the mom will refuse milk, and so they learn, okay, I must inhibit my bite, because this is how they see the world. Dogs will explore the world with their mouths the same way that children will explore, putting everything in their mouth. But we have hands. Puppies don't have hands. They never develop the use of their hands. They only use their mouth for the rest of their life. That's how they explore the world. So they will need to learn bite inhibition. They need to learn how to, when I put my mouth on something, how to keep my jaw not from crushing it. And that's called acquired bite inhibition. And so the first step is from their mom, who refuses milk if they bite too hard. Then they grow up and they start to play with their litter mates. And so if they bite the litter mate too hard, that's why they've got super razor sharp teeth for this purpose exactly. The litter mate will go, ow, and run away, but they will stop playing. The lesson that they learn is, when I bite too hard, play stops. So I need to control myself, and I need to control my emotions and my arousal level. Then they come into a human's home, and we need to teach them the same thing. When you bite skin, play stops. The squeaking is a signal. It's also, when it comes to dogs, it's an automatic response. If you get bitten, you'll usually yelp as a puppy because it hurts. So it's a signal that goes, oh, I hurt someone, I must stop. Depending on the type of dog that you have, sometimes going ow is fine because it's giving the dog a signal that the play will stop. It's not the owl that's giving them the information. It's I'm playing. Now I've bitten you. Oh, now I'm not playing anymore. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, I'll be more gentle next time. We then want to encourage them to do gentle handling. Oh, you touch me nicely. Good, you get a treat. Oh, you touch me nicely. Oh, you get a treat. But it's the absence of play that is teaching them that control. It's not the yelp. And some dogs get very aroused by that yelp. So you yelp and they go, oh yeah, it's even better. It's much more of a game, which is what my Weimaraner does, is that when you do the yelping, he just thinks this is the most best thing in the world. I love this game. I'm going to bite harder. So it depends on the dog. But it is one way of teaching bite inhibition. I'll throw in another freebie. I'll send you guys all my bite inhibition training protocol if you need it. I've got a PDF. Cool.
Which actually could lead us to. Do you want to share what your prize is? We haven't actually mentioned it.
Well, I think you know what, I want people to be happy in their homes with their dogs and pets. So I was gonna give one prize, and that was going to be a consultation with me. It's a full behavior consultation, and it doesn't have to be about kids and dogs. It's just anything that you want. And that's a 90-minute online consultation with a full behavior modification program plus a 30-minute follow-up training session. That's the one prize. And then the other is you can have my webinar, my comprehensive 3 pillars of living with pets and dogs. And you can have that for free.
Okay.
One lucky person.
So we need to see people telling us why they need it. Tell us in the comments, why do you need this? And we want to choose someone who really, really needs it, because that's the point. Yeah.
See, in my mind, everyone needs it. Everyone needs it, because I need it. Everyone, you know, I that's not, I don't mean to be like self-promoting. It's not about that. It's about how I want kids and dogs to be safe. I've seen some pretty nasty things happen, and it's things that parents never forgive themselves for, because it's always that guilt, you know, like, oh, what could I have done? And this is what you could have done. And so if you know all the tools, then you know you're just going to be in a better space to prevent accidents and have a better, more enjoyable experience with your dogs and your pets.
Yeah, and I can see it myself with doing stuff with behaviorism and all of that. It definitely helps, and to me it's similar to conscious parenting. Like, we look at the why behind their behaviors and we get to know them better, so that we have better responses. Like, we're not just doing what we think we should do, we're actually doing what we can do to work together. And I think that's, and
it's not it's not about being a perfect dog guardian. It's not about being a perfect parent. It's about having tools to help you make good choices and learn from ones that might have not been the best choices in the past. So it's just about learning. And I mean, I'm still learning. I learn every day. My kids teach me, my dogs teach me, and my clients teach me. The moment I stop learning, I will quit, because you never know enough in this job.
Yeah, no, it's so true. If we don't have any more questions, I'm going to move on to the end. Is there anything else you wanted to add before we finish off?
If anyone wants to get hold of me, you can go to my website. I do have a Facebook page and an Instagram account, but as Claire knows, she keeps telling me to get on Instagram. I'm so bad at it. I don't know how everyone has the time for all the social media. Like I don't know, but I've got a website and you can contact me through there. And so, yeah, get hold of me there instead of Facebook.
Okay, and I hope you all enjoyed this, and you can continue to ask questions in the comments, even when we finished, if you're watching the replay or whatever
Please
it is.
Do.
And next week, Thursday, we only have one talk, and the talk is called The Science Behind Behavior. And that's going to be such a great one, because it's all about the brain science behind why your child does what they do. And when you get to know this, and again, you can never know enough, there's always more to learn, but any little bit that you learn can be so beneficial in your relationship with your children. It's next level. It's amazing. So come and watch that next week, Thursday. Yeah, I think that was everything for today. I wanted to see if there was anything else I needed to add before we finish off. No, I think that was everything.
Yeah.
Oh, and I was going to mention, that's what I was going to say.
There's always something.
Jess and I actually met, like, I don't know if it was a year ago, just over a year ago, and our first interview together was on my podcast. So it's come so full circle, because if someone had told me then, in March of 2021, you are going to join up with Jess and you guys are going to start an association, I think I would have laughed my head off. And look where we are now. So,
I knew. I saw you and I thought, this is what we're gonna do. You're gonna make waves.
There we go.
No, I'm kidding. It was really crazy how we met, and then we did this podcast, and then we drew all these like similarities between what I do and what Claire does, and it's all the same. It's building relationships, it's understanding each other, it's respect, it's all the things that we want to teach our children in the long term, and it's how to be better people ourselves. We learn so much about this ourselves, and hopefully just make a better world. People are stressed, people are broken. Let's help everyone be better and feel better.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for having me, Claire. And thank you for asking me the questions. And thanks everybody for the questions. Please, if you do have any more questions, feel free to type them. I will come back and have a look and answer anything. Otherwise, you can send me a private message if you don't want to share it publicly.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Thanks.
And can they also do your SPCA questions what day do you do the SPCA?
Every month I do an Ask the Behaviorist on the Midrain SPCA page. So, but you can, if you follow my Facebook, it's there. But yeah, so if you have any questions, you can ask there. I'm here to help. That's what I love. I love to do anything I can do to help.
Great. Thanks everyone. Thanks,
Cool.
Jess. That was awesome. And we'll see you guys next week, Thursday. Have a good week.
Bye.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.
Bye.